This is the 6 Minutes English podcast. Improve your English with us in just minutes a day.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started.
Wow, this dark chocolate is incredible. It just melts in your mouth. I usually go for milk chocolate, but this is a whole new experience.
I know, right? Dark chocolate has a richness to it that milk chocolate can't quite match sometimes. It's funny to think how far chocolate has come from what it used to be. What do you mean? Like, did it always come in bars, or was it something else entirely? I've actually never really thought about the history of chocolate before. It's just always been chocolate.
A bitter drink? Seriously? That's hard to imagine when I'm enjoying this sweet bar. So, who were the first people to discover it? The earliest evidence of cocoa use dates back over 3,500 years to the Olmec civilization. Later, the Mayans and Aztecs really embraced it. They called the cocoa bean cacahuatl, and made a drink from it called chocolatl, which is where the word chocolate comes from. Chocolatl? That sounds exotic. What was it like? Was it just crushed beans and water? Pretty much, but they also added spices like chili peppers, vanilla, and annatto, which gave it a reddish color. It was often frothed up by pouring it back and forth between two vessels. It was a very important part of their culture, used in rituals, as medicine, and even as currency. Imagine buying something with cocoa beans. Wow, that's wild. Using it as money really shows how valuable it was to them. So, how did this bitter, spicy drink make its way to Europe and become the sweet treat we know today? That happened after the Spanish arrived in the Americas. Christopher Columbus might have been the first European to encounter cocoa beans, but it was Hernán Cortés, the Spanish conquistador, who brought them back to Spain in the early 16th century. I can imagine the Spaniards weren't too thrilled with a bitter, spicy drink after being used to sweet wines and things. Exactly. It wasn't an instant hit. The bitterness wasn't to their taste. But over time, they started experimenting. They replaced the chili peppers with sugar, honey, and cinnamon. That was a real game changer. Once they added sweetness, it started to gain popularity, first among the Spanish aristocracy, and then it spread to other European royal courts. Game changer, that's a good way to put it. So, just to make sure I understand, when you say game changer, you mean something that completely changes the way things are done or thought about, right? Spot on. Adding sugar completely transformed chocolate from a niche, bitter beverage into something that appealed to a much wider European palate. It totally changed its trajectory. Soon, chocolate houses, similar to coffee houses, started popping up in European cities where people could go to enjoy a cup. That makes so much sense. So it went from a sacred, bitter drink to a luxury beverage for the wealthy in Europe. But it was still a drink, not a bar, at this point, right? When did it become solid? That's where the Industrial Revolution comes in. In the early 19th century, a Dutch chemist named Coenraad Johannes van Houten invented the cocoa press. This machine could separate cocoa butter from the cocoa powder. This was another huge innovation. A cocoa press, that sounds very specific. Why was that such a big deal? Because before that, chocolate was very fatty and difficult to mold. Separating the cocoa butter made it possible to create a smoother, more consistent powder, which could then be mixed back with some of the butter, sugar, and other ingredients to create a moldable paste. This allowed for the creation of solid chocolate. So, that's how chocolate bars were born. That's incredible. Who were the first companies to start making them? British chocolate companies like J.S. Fry & Sons made the first actual chocolate bar in 1847. Soon after, Cadbury, Rowntree's, and Lindt in Switzerland also started producing solid chocolate. Milton Hershey in the U.S. later popularized milk chocolate with his famous Hershey bar in the early 20th century. It's amazing how many steps and innovations it took to get from those ancient bitter drinks to the variety of chocolate we have today. I'm thinking about all the different kinds of chocolate bars and candies. Absolutely. And the journey didn't stop there. Further refinements in manufacturing, like conking, which was developed by Rodolphe Lindt, made chocolate even smoother and more luxurious, getting rid of any grittiness. That really helped solid chocolate hit the spot for consumers, making it truly irresistible. Hit the spot, that's definitely what this dark chocolate is doing for me right now. It means to perfectly satisfy a craving or desire, right? Exactly. When something hits the spot, it's just what you needed and perfectly satisfying. And that's exactly what smooth, sweet chocolate became for people worldwide. From a ceremonial drink to a global comfort food. I never realized how much history was in a simple chocolate bar. It's gone from a bitter, sacred currency to a sweet, mass-produced treat. It's almost a metaphor for human innovation and adaptation. It really is. And honestly, what we've talked about is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to chocolate's history. There's so much more to learn about its economic impact, its role in different cultures, and even the ethics of its production today. The tip of the iceberg, I like that one too. So, you mean there's a lot more to the story than what we've discussed, and we've only scratched the surface. Precisely. It's like seeing only the small part of an iceberg above the water, knowing there's a huge, unseen part beneath. There are entire books written about chocolate's history. That makes sense. Well, this has been a really enlightening conversation. I'll definitely think about all this the next time I bite into a chocolate bar. Thanks for the history lesson. You're very welcome. It's one of those everyday things we take for granted, but its past is surprisingly rich and complex. Cheers to chocolate. Thanks for listening to English Boost. Remember, practice a little every day and you'll see big results. See you in the next episode.